Let's look at another theory. I have a theory about aggressive behavior, aggression. My theory says frustration causes increase in aggression. My theory says that when people are frustrated, when they want to get something but cannot get it, they tend to be aggressive. This is a theory. Remember, we cannot test whether a theory is true or not. A theory is too broad. It's too broad that it doesn't tell us how to make observations. The best we can do with a theory is to test its hypothesis. Fortunately, a theory gives us specific predictions, which are called hypotheses. A hypothesis tells us how to make observations. We can test a hypothesis derived from a theory. If the hypothesis is supported, we believe we get support for our theory. Let's look at my theory again. Frustration causes increase in aggressive behavior. What kind of predictions can I make based on my theory? If my theory is correct, what kind of observation should I be able to make? One prediction is that among football teams, those teams who want to win really badly and is losing the game should show more aggressiveness than the other teams. This is a very specific, concrete prediction. This prediction, this hypothesis tells you how to make observations. It directs you to make observations on football teams, and you are particularly in those teams who really want to win. Those teams that, they have to win, they must win, otherwise they are going to be kind of eliminated from the rest of the tournament. These guys, they want to win really badly. They don't have any way to back up. They cannot afford to lose anymore. So they want to win, but you also observe what happens when they lose. They want to win so badly, they don't have alternatives, they cannot afford to lose, but they lose anyways. Under this condition, these guys should show a lot of high aggressiveness. And then you have to define what do you mean by aggressiveness under these conditions, under this observation. While you should define your aggressiveness as the illegal passes, pushing the opponents, and even fighting in the ball field, and you can count them up. You can count how many times these aggressive transgressions are committed by the team that really wants to win but is losing the game. This hypothesis, if you find find support for this hypothesis, and then your theory receive support. This is how we treat theories in scientific research. We never prove a theory correct, but we can accumulate evidence in support of our theories by testing our hypothesis. Hypothesis testing is related with the principle of empiricism. Empiricism means that empiricism is a way to determine the truth value of a theory. It's basically how we tell our ideas is correct or not. Empiricism means that we use evidence based on experience or based on observation. That's how we verify the truth value of an idea or a theory. Science, all branches of science follow the principle of empiricism. Psychology is a science. This means that we test psychological propositions, statements, or ideas based on evidence, based on observation, based on experience. A good way to understand empiricism is by way of a comparison. We can compare empiricism with other ways of determining truth value of ideas. Empiricism is not the only way. Not all people like to settle the truth value of ideas, thoughts and ideas by making observations. Some people rely on tradition. Some people hold on to a belief because it has been passed down from generation to generation. For example, in the old times, maybe 100 years ago, some people in the old times believed that lunatics or crazy people were possessed by demons. Demon possession, that was a very traditional idea in understanding people with schizophrenia and other severe mental disorders. There are so many traditional ideas that still there are some people believe in today. For example, some traditional medicine are really part of a tradition. For example, herbal medicine. Some people believe that certain herbs can prevent coronavirus infection. Some herbs can treat the kind of lung diseases caused by coronavirus infection. These ideas have not been tested empirically, but some people believe that they are true just because of tradition. This has been the way people have been using treating diseases for hundreds and even thousands of years. So tradition is another way of determining whether an idea is true or not. And then still another way of determining whether idea is true or not is authority. Some people accept a belief as true simply because it was passed on by an authoritative person, by an expert, or by a leader. Leaders can be wrong. Experts can be wrong too. For example, in the old times, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, even psychologists used to believe that schizophrenia and autism were caused by poor parenting. At that time, even psychologists didn't know the true cause of schizophrenia and autism. They believe that, particularly autism, many psychologists, experts, they believed that kids who had cold mothers tend to become autistic. This is really wrong. We know that through scientific research, nowadays we know that autism is a developmental disorder that has some genetic basis. Schizophrenia is also a genetic inherited kind of disease, have a biological reasons. It's not mostly caused by parenting styles. So authority is not a reliable way of determining whether an idea is right or not. And then still another way of determining an idea is true or not is by reasoning, rationality. Some ideas sound really reasonable, but they are not necessarily true. And in science, in scientific research, we are mostly interested in empirical truths, not logical truths. Some truths can be arrived by reasoning. For example, you can use transitive reasoning to make inferences. If you know A equals B, B equals C, and then you know A equals C, you don't have to make observations. In fact, you don't know how to make observations to prove this statement as true. This is a logical truth. It's not empirical truth. Empirical truths can be verified only by making observations. And in psychology and biology, in all sciences, we are interested in empirical truth. So we rely on empirical observations. In the history of psychology, some ideas have turned out to be not suitable for empirical verification. For example, Sigmund Freud. Remember when we covered the history of psychology, we talked about Sigmund Freud. He had this idea that human behavior was driven by unconscious drives or unconscious instincts. According to Freud, people have the sex instincts, death instincts, and people have this secret desire for incest, which is unconscious, which is hidden from the person himself. And according to Freud, this unconscious desires, these unconscious instincts can be revealed through psychoanalysis, through the careful analysis of an expert like Freud himself. Can we conduct empirical investigation on unconscious drives, unconscious instincts? Can we really verify that most people or all people have this kind of incest instinct or desire for incest? This secret desire to have sexual relations with relatives, particularly son, mother, daughter, father kind of relations, is really difficult. Well, it's unconscious. According to Freud, it's unconscious. I don't know that I have this secret desire. How can anybody observe that? It's unobservable. If something is not observable, you cannot conduct empirical verification. You don't know how to observe it. So this is not an object for scientific investigation. Behaviorism is particularly interested in empirical verification. Behaviorism can be considered going to the other extreme, the opposite to psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysts are interested in things nobody can observe, basically. But behaviorists are interested only in things we can directly observe. Well, according to behaviorism, we should only study stimulus and response. Stimulus means something you can observe in the environment. For example, a stimulus might be a loud noise. A loud noise is something you can observe, and it produces a response in the baby or in the child. A loud noise makes a baby cry, so the response can be measured. According to behaviorism, science can only study observable stimulus and observable response. This is all they are interested in. Okay, let's take another break.